Hello everyone, this is Magic Lover doing a little Commander deck tech. After a while of playing mostly Risk and Gave style decks, I'm just trying to branch off and do a little something else as an interesting theme. As I've been noticing, there's been more and more good mill cards being printed as of late, and I know that's usually an oxymoron because mill has almost never been good. But in the spirit of being the underdog and going for a little value, excuse me, I decided to make a mill deck and see if I could make a go of it. And so far, have been met with, I will say, limited success. Certainly not getting crushed, but my win percentage is probably 30 to 40%. But it is an interesting deck. It's a fun, different take to play with some cards maybe otherwise wouldn't, and to attack from angles that people don't usually expect. So I'll go through the deck real quick and give you an idea of what it is, how it works, and why I built it this way. First off, as a commander, Damia, Sage of Stone. It's sort of an odd choice as a commander. I know a lot of people, if they build mill decks, they're going to build something like an Una, who is in this deck, is a great mill style card. Or, you know, a couple blue-black generals, but I like Damia for a specific reason. Basically, this Necropotence clause in here to just refill your hand. I find that by the time I get to 7 mana, I've probably already dumped my hand and I'm looking for a restock. And other than using, you know, some cheap blue card draw, Mind Spring, Blue Sun Zenith, et al., those kind of cards, this is an extra handy guy that always is available through your command zone. Gums up the board a little bit, you know, with a 4/4 Death Touch, but you know, fills your hand back up pretty effectively. So this type of effect seems to work pretty well, and it's the right color combination. Also, I did try building this deck using Mimeoplasm as more of an aggro. You know, just the mill is more the means to the end to get creatures in the yard for Mimeoplasm as opposed to the actual end effect, you know, milling your opponent, getting to draw an empty library and winning. But I found I like Damia a little bit better. So I think this is a good choice in general, and then I'll explain why. So going through the deck, first the green. What the green bigs, you know, why we want green in our commander and our general. Here's our suite of mana fixing and accelerant. Darksteel Ignite, pretty handy. Golgarian, Dimir Signets, you know, great for that turn 2 or turn 1 off a Soul Ring optimally, but you know, very good and handy for fixing and getting the extra mana out early. Soul Ring, obviously, the only thing in this deck that I'm pretty sure that is not legacy legal, but pretty ubiquitous in Commander. Chromatic Lantern, great. I play this in any 3-color deck. 2-color, I think you can get away with not having it, but 3-color, it's pretty handy to be able to just, hey, I've got lands. Even if they don't normally tap for mana, they do now, and it's any color, so slows the game down a little bit, but is handy for fixing. And then the green, what I consider the typical green acceleration suite. So Sakura Tridelver, Rampant Growth, Cultivate, Harrow, Explosive Vegetation, and Oracle. This, you know, not a bad suite of ways to get some extra mana going and to fix it pretty well. That's what the green side brings to the table, that and a little other stuff that I'll get into later. Now, in terms of the utility, the cards you hate to see against you are the Eldrazi Legends that recycle, you know, graveyards when they're milled, and Gaia's Blessing, which is that green card that does the same thing. Those are your enemies. Blightsteel Colossus, Vigor, those kind of guys that just recycle themselves, not really an issue. It's the ones that recycle your entire graveyard when they're milled. So those are the ones you have to get rid of, and for that I've got Leyline of the Void and Scavenging Ooze. Against certain decks, Leyline of the Void and Scavenging Ooze can just flat out win out of nowhere, so they're pretty handy. And I have won games where I've milled like 40 cards, hit the you know, the Emrakul or the Kozilek, and then managed to get out a Leyline Scavenging Ooze, mill them again, and this time keep it exiled. So pretty handy to have something that goes out. I mean, this could be anything. This could be, you know, Relic of Progenitus or Tormod Script or whatever. I just like having the extra utility for the creature, and being able to, you know, not worry about casting it if it's in my opener. And then from there, in terms of utility, we've got Seedborn Muse. The combo here, and there's a combo and a non-bo. So the combo is with Seedborn Muse, and then any of your X pieces to, you know, untap, like Keening Stone, Sands of Delirium, Grind Clock, any of the stuff that you can untap and use to mill again. All of your accelerants, everything. Pretty handy. Now the non-bo here is with Mesmeric Orb, and you have to be careful. I wouldn't play Mesmeric Orb and Seedborn Muse because you will most likely deck yourself. Because untapping everything twice a turn and Mesmeric Orb, unless you just pretty much sit back and don't do anything, you are going to get milled in an awful hurry, because we'll go over Mesmeric Orb is one of the heavy lifters of this deck. So, that's Seedborn Muse. Stasis, great. There's a combo here as well. It's a little tricky to get off, but even if you just play this for value to, you know, pause the opponent's, you know, turn for 4 or 5 turns and just make them sit there doing nothing but milling cards the whole time because you got some other things going on, that's not bad. But the combo here is with Stasis and, where'd it go? Thran Turbine. Move these two up. So Stasis and Thran Turbine, and where is he? Soratomi Minesweeper. So during your upkeep, you add the 2, you throw it into Minesweeper, which doesn't tap, you return an island to your hand, you mill them for 2, you draw a card, and you play your island again. So that you just rinse, cycle, and repeat, pay the island to keep the upkeep on Stasis, use Thran Turbine to do this, and rinse and recycle your island. So you can pretty much keep them in almost permastasis until they find a way to deal with one of the 3 pieces. And these 2 on their own are pretty handy. Otherwise I wouldn't go for a 3-card combo without a heck of a lot of tutoring. But this is pretty handy with some other cards, as we'll go over. So that's that. Also, let's see, we have Noxious Revival. This is great not only for messing up their targets for the graveyard, but for very cheap getting back, you know, your favorite X spell or something that they managed to deal with or counter. I've been known to Decree of Pain, have an opponent restock, and then Noxious Revival, Decree of Pain, and be like, okay, I'll just wipe and draw a boatload again. So it happens. Pretty handy. And along those lines, another green oldie but goodie Eternal Witness. Since we are running Volrath's Stronghold, great, you know, utility land. Getting back Eternal Witness to then get back Noxious Revival and get back something else. You know, it's really hard for them to deal with it all, and it gives you inevitability. Sylvan Library and Sensei's Divining Top, just great, you know, cheap library manipulation in terms of what's on top, having access to something, draw at instant speed, or just sacrifice your life for more cards, which in a 40 life format, pretty handy. And Personal Tutor, since most of your big mill cards are sorceries, this is pretty easy to set up if you haven't already found it. That's the utility section. On to the, let's see, apologize. On to the creature beatdown section. So this is, the goal of this deck is obviously to stall the game as long as possible to mill them. So in that regard, we've got Echoing Truth, which can be handy to bring back your Stasis if you don't have the other pieces and want to replay it. Cyclonic Rift, just many people will rage quit if you overload play this against them to, you know, just completely push everything back to their hand. Evacuation, same thing for creatures. Portcullis, this is a not very commonly played but very interesting deck. I mean, if you put down a Sakura Tribe Elder, and a, you know, Hedron Crab, and then drop a Portcullis before they've even got their commander out, pretty much no one's putting creatures down the rest of the game until they deal with Portcullis, which is pretty fun. Of note, Enter the Battlefield triggers will still trigger under this, and then this triggers, the Portcullis triggers so that it exiles it. So if someone casts acidic slime, the trigger could kill the portcullis. The acidic slime will ironically stay exiled forever, but it will get the portcullis out. Ensnaring Bridge, this is a powerhouse. Very rarely will you lose if you land this, because you can dump your hand, cast Ensnaring Bridge, and pretty much just sit back and not worry about anyone attacking until they find a way to deal with the bridge. Again, bit of a non-bow here. If you cast Bridge and then cast Damia, or vice versa, you're going to constantly restock your hand. It's very tough to dump your hand under this. But even if you do, this keeps the huge guys, Eldrazi and the rest of the crew, the 6/6, 5/5s and aboves from attacking, which is handy. But Edric decks will still roll over you even if you got the Ensnaring Bridge out. Contagion Engine, pretty handy. I use this because I also play with Grind Clock, which is counter dependent. So I have won games with proliferating Grind Clock counters and getting that up to lethal very quickly. Life's Finale, great black sweeper to be able to wipe them and still get some of their stuff out of their library. And Decree of Pain, which is an 8 mana just bomb if it resolves. On to the mill. So I separated into spells and creatures. So on the spell side, one of the best new ones to be printed while Increasing Confusion. Gives you the X and then double X with the flashback. So very, very efficient card to just, and turn 8, 9, 10, dump 8 mana in the first time, 9 mana in the second time, and get 27 in the graveyard. Traumatize, Heavy Lifter, especially in a 100 card format. Archive Trap usually cast for free, even if not 13 for 1 card, not bad. Memory Erosion, this is great. Usually if you can get this off in the first 5 rounds, you're going to Memory Erosion them for probably 20 to 25 over the course of the game. Jace, Baby Jace, works fine. Another heavy lifter like Memory Erosion, Curse of the Bloody Tome. Doesn't rely on them to cast anything, but it is only 2 per turn. But again, this adds up. Brain Freeze, great for that turn where you've got 2 mana untapped and there's a bunch of spells traded back and forth, or they cast a bunch of things after the turn after you've evacuation, they dump their hand again, and you Brain Freeze for 20 cards or so. Mind Sculpt, this is kind of a dirtle card, but 2 mana, 7 cards for 1 card, pretty efficient. Jace's Erasure, pretty efficient. Again, this will get him for maybe 10 or so for the cost of 2 mana, not too bad. Thought Scour, wouldn't even make the grade if it didn't cycle, but it does, so 2 cards at instant speed for a cycle, not too bad. Glimpse, Mind Funeral, I'll come back to Altar, Grind Clock, Mesmeric Orb, Sands of Delirium, and Keening Stone. All just solid artifacts to get them pretty quickly. Altar's pretty handy. The combo here, and I'll touch on this as I go into the creatures, but Altar just allows you to chump block with something, or if they're going to kill it, just to sack it for value and mill them with it. But the 2 big things that are almost insta-wins is if you can get either Sewer Nemesis or the new one, Consuming Aberration, both of which are XX equal to number of cards in their graveyard. So if they've got 40 cards in their graveyard, it's a 40/40, and you sack it for 40 more. So usually if you get one of these 2 out and you draw an Altar, the game's just about over. But it is a good way to just add value for instant speed, no mana. On to the creatures. We talked about Sword Tongue and Minesweeper. Cathartic Adept, this is just a 1-drop, usually mills for a couple and then chump blocks something big. Hedron Crab, great, to get that landfall. Mineshrieker, this is another thing that works very well with Ran Turbine. Just pump that 2 for free into Shrieker and mill them during your upkeep. Turn it into a beater if you get something good. If not, you're just milling a card for value. Snapcaster, another great way to get stuff back. This should actually be in utility. Riddlekeeper, a way to stop the swarm from just overwhelming you without giving up big chunks of their library. Fidalcan Entrancer, not the best value, but he's got a big enough butt on him that he can clog up the board a little bit and mill for 2 for cheap every time. Dreamborn Muse. This, along with Mesmeric Orb, yeah, they both get you, so you have to be careful not to mill yourself, but this is one of the heavy lifters, and even though it usually doesn't last for too long on the board, if you can get it out for a while, and then Volras Stronghold it back or something, you know, usually the game is going to be over. This can do lots of great things for you. Already talked about Sewer Nemesis and Consuming Aberration, both XX creatures that, you know, you can just forget the mill plan, and if this is a 50-50, just swing and beat head for the win. Undercity Informer, the star of the new Hermit Druid deck in Legacy, but this guy is another way to get value like an Altar of Dementia, except he's doing a Mind Funeral-ish, you know, mill until you find land, but another way to sacrifice creatures for value if they're going to die if you got a sweeper or something anyway. Nemesis Arisen, just a great all-around mill style, you know, he attacks and does an instant glimpse the unthinkable, which is pretty good. And then last but not least, Una, Queen of the Fae. You know, just a great way, especially against 1 or 2 color decks, to, you know, clog up the board with 1/1 flyers and exile their good chunks of their library with it. Good X spell. So anyway, just a brief intro. I'll run through some games and throw them up, but wanted to give you an idea of kind of how I built this deck. It's not just, you know, mill.deck. It's not every mill card known to man. It is 3-colored. I think it does, you know, need black for some of the black-blue good mill stuff, as well as black sweepers, and it does need the green, because if you can't accelerate or get the utility of getting the good stuff out of your graveyard, you can be in trouble. So all in all, it's a pretty fun deck. It does attack from a different angle, and if you're interested, I encourage you to build. It doesn't cost that much, since most of this is you know, not that expensive. These aren't, you know, tournament staple kind of things. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see how it works in some games.